Presidential candidate Senator Tim Scott said foreign students protesting at U.S. colleges against Israel amid its war with Hamas and Gaza should be deported. Anytime you actually encourage for the genocide, the elimination of an entire race of people, anytime you support terrorism and encourage murder, there should be consequences, Scott said in a Fox News interview Wednesday. It should be consequences for those students, and it should be consequences for those universities. The comments follow a similar sentiment from fellow GOP hopeful Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who demanded Wednesday that the Florida chapter of the pro-Palestine student organization Students for Justice in Palestine be disbanded. Scott previously said he would withhold Pell Grants from universities that did not act to prevent anti-Semitism on campus, referring to the protests. This conflict in Gaza began October 7th when Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip, launched a surprise attack on Israel, killing 1,400 Israelis, most of them civilians. The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry said responding strikes from Israel have so far killed nearly 5,800 Palestinians, including more than 2,300 children. While organizations like SJP, which refer to Hamas as the Palestinian Resistance, explicitly supported it, have garnered criticism. Many other students who protest against the war have not endorsed Hamas, which is designated as a terrorist group by both the U.S. and European Union. That has created First Amendment concerns for political speech on college campuses. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, a free speech group, called Florida's directive to abolish the SJP unconstitutional and dangerous. If it goes unchallenged, no one's political beliefs will be safe from government suppression, the group said in a statement. SJP's chapter at George Washington University also came under fire Wednesday after a small number of its members projected messages criticizing the university and the Israeli government on a campus building. Also in the Wednesday interview, Scott described President Biden's $100 billion supplementary budget request, which includes $14 billion intended for Israel. Scott said the Israel funding should not be tied to other issues. The focus should be on Israel. We should have a standalone package for Israel, he said. We know that would unite the vast majority of the House and the Senate, and the President could sign it. We should provide Israel with the clear picture of a united America in support of their efforts to eliminate Hamas as a threat for the rest of Israel's existence, which requires the wiping Hamas off the map, he continued. Where do we even begin? It's fun to watch politicians from a party that talk about censorship, right? Because all the Republicans that were getting banned on Twitter and YouTube and all these other platforms for spreading misinformation were like, oh, they're censoring my free speech. But then when you see students who are protesting the Israeli government being responded to with threats of their school being defunded or some other type of retribution, you don't, not only do you not say anything in support of them, but you tell them, yeah, I'm fine with suppressing your free speech, and I'm even up for deporting you if you're from another country and expressing an opinion I don't like. This is very dangerous, as the SJP said. Or excuse me, it's very dangerous for I'll give you this rationale. There are other countries the U.S. is really supportive of, such as Saudi Arabia. And oftentimes, there's a criticism of the United States that how could you as a democracy support a country that's so restrictive towards its people, right? Doesn't have a democracy, this, monarchy, whatever, the king and whatnot. And imagine if I was a college student, I'm on campus, I'm from, let's say, Canada or the UK, and I go, oh yeah, the United States needs to cut off its relationship with Saudi Arabia so that it can protest the country being so anti-democratic. And then some politician says, well, you know what, you're from another country and you're trying to like stoke conflict between the U.S. government and this other country it's supportive of. Okay, we can get out of here. It would be the exact same thing. Because really what's going on is you have these politicians who are more loyal to a foreign government than to their own people, which is why they can propose doing all of these things to regular people who have dissenting opinions from themselves. And to be clear, there's plenty of pro-Palestine protesters who condemn what Hamas did, who say, hey, that 1,000 plus of Israelis that you killed. We don't accept that. That's not something we support. But we do think that the Israeli response has been no better. Like the article said, 2,000 children were killed by the Israeli government during these attacks, and you don't hear one word from Scott or DeSantis or Haley or really any of these Pence, any of these people, whether they're running for president or they're in the Senate or House and they're on the Republican side, condemning this. So if blood spills and it's someone that's Israeli, that's like the worst thing ever, right? And it should be the worst thing ever. But then if the blood spills on the Palestinian side by people who aren't even combatants, that's okay. This is what they deserve, right? They deserve to have 2,000 children murdered, electricity and gas cut off, basic utilities denied to them because of what one screwed up group that a lot of them don't even back or support are doing. And then if you're in the United States and you say, hey, you know what? I don't support. I'm sure there's some people that have tried to do the Hamas support thing, and I condemn that. But if you're in the United States and you're on a college campus and you say, I don't support either Hamas or Israel, I think people should be treated evenly. I think the Israeli government has treated Palestinians very badly, and that's part of what caused this climate that we have today. If you say something as light and as milquetoast as that, get ready to have Tim Scott say you should be deported if you so happen to be from another country. You know, it's crazy how this guy, he's got no chance of winning this presidential nomination, like just zero. And I said that before he even started. It's he and Larry Elder launched these Dead on Arrival campaigns. But what I find so pathetic is that you're like, people like this want to be leaders. And there's a couple of things that leaders have to be able to do. And just because you get elected to Congress doesn't make you a leader. When you're in the House, you're one of 300 members. In the Senate, you're one of 100 members. So neither of those positions automatically makes you a leader. But what's sad is that leadership requires some type of bravery. And he misconstrues taking this extremely pro-Israel position as like brave or strong, when in reality it's by the virtue of the United States' climate one of the weaker positions you can assume, because the Israeli government, more specifically the AIPAC lobby in the United States, it's one of the most powerful relating to any foreign country. See, they're able to commit human rights violations against Palestinians and sometimes other groups depending on who's over there, and get away with it by invoking imagery of the Holocaust. So if you say, hey, Israeli government, don't mindlessly murder 2,000 children, you're anti-Semitic. Wait, who say anything about Jewish people? See, that's a little slick thing to do. And rather than Scott saying, you know what, I don't support what Hamas did at all, they're terrorists, they should be treated that way, but let's not go around killing thousands of innocent people who I'm sure just want to live in peace and harmony with Israelis. And there's been this 70 plus year kind of like conflict between both sides that we need to find some kind of peaceful solution with, even if it seems impossible. Something like that would go a long way, especially on the conservative side, where it seems like they can't do anything but try to stoke the Israeli government off as much as they can. So his campaign's going nowhere, but this comment and his response to the workers striking should be the two things that end his campaign as far as like support among regular people, because this is a guy who tried to be against protesters by saying they want more pay for fewer hours, and someone who's against free speech to such an extent that he thinks you should be deported if you're against a foreign government. That's not even the foreign government of the country that this like hypothetical immigrant is inside of. Like, it would be one thing if you protest the U.S. and you do that, but which is still would be anti-free speech. But again, at least it's like on their turf. You're talking about a guy who says, if you protest this particular government and you're from another country, we should be able to get rid of you. That is insane. Anytime you hear conservatives talking about, oh, we're pro free speech, don't believe it, because it's one thing to get banned on some stupid website because there's a million different counterparts of it usually, But when you're talking about removing someone from an entire country because they're not in support of some foreign government's conflict, it's insane. But like I said, that's the kind of climate we live in, where people just accept that their political leaders, I hate even using that term, but the politicians of prominence within their own government can say this outlandish stuff and get away with it almost completely.